First off, I'd like just to acknowledge the work that's gone into the business model work since we began going back a couple of years ago. And what I wanted to talk about was content strategy. I think what was interesting is we started moving through our discussions, talking to members and talking to stakeholders, and obviously within the Leaders Forum, which comprises the chapter presidents, vice presidents, the AMCs, and the staff, was around the shift that we've been making. As we've talked about, members are very critical. It's very important to us that we have a very strong and a very engaged member base. But as we started having those discussions, we started to see other opportunities to reach out to what we're calling other segments. So we touched about the outreach to boards of directors, to what we're calling F10s, individuals in the first 10 years of working in an association, typically defined as ages 22 to 32, and then growth-oriented associations. And as we met and we started talking about how this organization is going to collectively, and I'll reinforce that, collectively drive greater value to its members in these new segments, we started talking about content strategy, which I think for many of us, as we started taking a look at it, was a fairly new concept in terms of the association and the not-for-profit sector. And I think what's interesting when you take a look at what we want to try to do, as I mentioned, it's really driving stronger value. But we need an approach and we need a strategy around how we're going to deliver better value to the members in these other segments. And as I noted, this is where content strategy really comes into play. When you take a look at it, content strategy, it's really a systematic approach of identifying, gathering, developing, organizing, and presenting learning and knowledge. And it's about really building the resources that are helpful and that people need to help them grow their organizations, become better board members, or advance in their careers. And while certainly it's a very ambitious goal, it's one that we know has worked in the not-for-profit sector to a degree, more in the private sector, but we're starting to see it shift into our sector. And I think as the discussion started to evolve around the Leaders Forum, that we all recognize the need that content is really where we need to focus. And I think for some of us, when we first started talking about that, the issue was, we're just going to be creating more information. And that's not actually what you want to be doing. What you want to really do is take advantage of what it is you're already doing and try to make that information more accessible, morph it in different directions for people to be able to access when they want it, where they want it, and how they want it. And I think that's an important distinction. I think the one thing I'd use an example is, many of you know we do what's called the CEO Symposium. It takes place every year in February. It's actually going to run in Vancouver as well this year. But the interesting thing about that session is it's geared toward chief staff officers and their chair and vice chair. And it's an event that you physically have to come to for 2 days. And I think in the realm of content strategy, what you want to be able to look at is to be, at least be able to provide an overview to people who are out there about, I guess I would say, some of the mechanics of the issues that are being discussed, so that people have a better understanding of the things that they need to address in terms of their relationship with their board chair as they go forward. I've often used the example too, much of what we do as a national organization, as a chapter, is very strong events like this face-to-face. We're blessed that we've got 550 people with us over this next 3 days, but CSAE has 3,000 members across the country. And certainly while we're live streaming, we've got to find a way to get the information that's delivered here out across the country in different ways, using different media, so be it audio, video, graphics, or text, and be able to deliver it across different platforms, be it your mobile phone, your tablet, or your desktop, or even your laptop. I think within the emerging content strategy is around looking at the current assets that we have. How do we repackage? How do we repurpose? I think as importantly, though, it's all about finding a key group of people who are interested in being content creators and content curators. And the differentiation there, of course, is people being able to say to us, look, there's a really interesting article happening on this particular website. How do we get people to see that information? Part of this discussion has been going on for a number of months now, and the thing that we moved forward on over the summer is we actually hired a content manager, a guy by the name of Stephen Trustram. Those of you who haven't had a chance to meet him, please talk to him. He'll be very active over the conference in terms of social media and getting the message out, but also in discussing with our chapters about the role that we're all going to play together as we move forward on the content strategy. And this is really key. As I said, it's not about pushing more out to people. I think it's being actually more selective, more precise, harnessing social media, of course, to a great degree, but again, I always look at it, and I use the analogy, my remarks, I'll wind them up here, is around if you looked at it from a board member's perspective, and I use the example of a board member sitting on a small voluntary organization in Fort St. John, BC. He or she is often dependent upon the knowledge that's coming from around the table of the other board members or the executive director. You want to try to get to a point where that individual has unlimited access to the information that they need, either through the membership that ED might have, or they come on a pick and pay basis. But it's really being able to get the word out about what CSAE and its chapters deliver, and that part of it is really going to build around the content strategy. I think, again, just final remarks is when we look at this, often what we've had to wrestle with is the thinking that content strategy is, you lay the plan out for the year. And I think as we've gone through that exercise, what we've learned, it's more about what we call a sprint, a 3-month sprint. Start developing content, start curating content, move it out across, as I say, different media, and start measuring the feedback, because that then helps you further refine things going forward. We're just at the beginning of the process. You've seen a lot of activity around the conference, and we'll continue to see over the next couple of days, but the important thing, it's going to carry on afterwards. So the conference, in terms of the education we deliver, as Stephen said yesterday, it's not going to just fall off the cliff. It'll continue rolling out, and I think it's really critical for us. We've talked to the chapters again. We're looking for experienced people in this area to be part of that content creation and curation network. So we're very excited about it, and I think at the end of the day, as the question that was posed, it's about value to the members and to the segments.
Thank you.
Panel, any questions for Michael?
Michael, can you give us an example how the content will be driven differently in the future?
I guess a good example would be, I'll use the annual conference as an example. Each year we do a call for submissions. We get anywhere from 120 to 130 submissions for 25 speaking slots. What happens though is we've got, as I say, we've got 95 that we aren't using. Nothing really much happens with it, to that content. And in addition, people that are chosen, and they're notified in May, they don't end up speaking till October. And I think, in the future, what we see is that process, it's an ongoing call for submissions where the content's coming in. So let's say if Maura put in an idea that we'd actually capitalize and get that information out at that time. She might do a 2-minute video. She might do a 1-minute audio clip. We might ask her to blog on an issue. There might be a webinar. All types of things that happen sooner than later, and carry it forward that she would maybe be blogging over a series a couple of months. She might be speaking at the conference. If it was, again, a case, let's say that Christina put in a call for submission and the idea wasn't picked because it didn't align with the topics, it doesn't mean that that idea just kind of falls off the table. We look to try to take that information and content, move it out across different media, different platforms sooner, because content strategy, I think the thing we all have to recognize, it moves very quickly. An example would be is you're monitoring content strategy. You're blogging in the morning about an issue. At 12 noon, you're noticing there's no traffic. You change the blog. That's how quickly it has to move. So I think, Tom, back to your question, it's looking at things like the annual conference. We started talking to this about the chapters when they're looking at speakers. How do we get those individuals who are speaking engaged earlier in delivering content in a variety of different ways so it attracts people more? And I think the way that I look at this in content strategy, I think what CSAE has often been guilty of is it's kind of like dating. We kind of go, marry me. That doesn't always work, as some of us have found out. I think it's more a process of getting to people, for people to know us more, to see us as a resource, which in time will lead them to the organization, lead them down that path of monetization. But it's about, again, creating that value where people are going to say, that's the organization I want to go to at a local level and a national level to help me in terms of my own organization, my boards, and also for the younger staff.